Some Sri Lankans here in Singapore are skipping meals to save money and shipping bicycles back to Sri Lanka. These are some of the things people are doing in solidarity to help those back at home as Sri Lanka goes through an economic crisis. Lauren Ong with this report.
One less meal or one less night out. It's a daily dilemma facing Samira Paris. He had just moved to Singapore for work as Sri Lanka's economic collapse reached its peak. Whatever he saves on goes to his family back home.
When I say I'm cutting down costs, it's not purely out of desperation. I just don't feel that it's right for me to enjoy life here when people back home are suffering. But you know what I mostly try to do is I try to cut down all unnecessary expenses. I don't go to the mall very often. Sometimes I do skip meals, but I guess intermittent fasting is not that bad. So that's one thing I try to do.
He says a meal in Singapore is almost equivalent to 3 back home, and the $60 or so that he saves can make a difference. He adds that many others like him are coming up with ways to contribute. Medicine and other essential items are the usual items sent home. The not-so-usual items include bicycles.
It's very difficult to travel without fuel, so now people are using bikes as a mode of transport. And quite sadly, we have a shortage of bikes because we only have, I think, 2 manufacturers in the country.
Some Sri Lankans in Singapore say those with family overseas are generally more well-to-do, and it's those of a lower socio-economic crisis who are bearing the brunt of the crisis in Sri Lanka. Still, they say there's still a limit on how the community here can help.
Sri Lankans in Singapore definitely, when they can send money, they would, right? But they want to send it through a reliable source. That's the main concern, right? If it goes into the wrong hands, then there is no point, right? Every single time we meet as Sri Lankans, this is our discussion also, what can we do and all those things.
Mr. William is a permanent resident in Singapore, but his concerns back home are primarily over how his 72-year-old mother is coping. He's sending her to the United Kingdom, where his sister is currently. While Sri Lankans CNA spoke with remain optimistic about the situation back home, they say real change has to go beyond the changing of guards, with more decisive policies and more engaged voters.